you online. Welcome to our Sunday Satsang. We have a very interesting topic today. So, last week we had reincarnation, the spiral staircase. And today's topic is the law of karma. Is it soul freedom or bondage? So, we'll explore that today. But before that, we will offer a prayer, have a meditation till about 6:30, and then go into the talk. So, sit here. Thank you. So let's offer a prayer together. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, friend, beloved God, great masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji, Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, our beloved Guru, Paramhansa Yoganandaji, our friend and guide, Swami Kriyanandaji, saints and sages of all religions, we bow before you all. Bless and guide us. Help us become perfect as thou art perfect. Om. Just double inhale and tense the whole body. Double exhale and relax. We'll do this 2 more times. Inhale, tense. Exhale and relax. Just taking a moment to center ourselves and focusing on our breath. Let's do 3 rounds of even count breathing. Inhaling to a count of 8, holding to a count of 8, and exhaling to a count of 8. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Just taking a moment to check our posture. Spines away from the back of the chair. The shoulders are relaxed. Palms facing upward at the junction of thigh and abdomen. And we will chant. So if you know this chant, please join in. Guru Brahma. It's an invocation to the Guru. Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Brahmanandam Paramasukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Nanvatitam Gaganasadrishyam Tatvamasya Dilaksham Egam Nityam Vimalam Achalam Sarvade Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunaraidam Sadguru Tvam Namami. The next chant is How Shall I Love Thee, Lord my God, with every breath that I breathe. Just as the fire may burn the whole forest, burn to the roots my desires. And then next time from love, it goes to seek and serve and worship. So we'll do 4 rounds of that. How shall I love thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? How shall I love thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? Just as the fire may burn a whole forest, burn to the root my desires. Just as the fire may burn a whole forest, burn to the root my desires. How shall I seek thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? How shall I seek thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? Just as the fire may burn a whole forest, burn to the root my desires. Just as the fire may burn a whole forest, burn to the root my desires. How shall I serve thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? How shall I serve thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? Just as the fire may burn a whole forest, burn to the root my desires. Just as the fire may burn a whole forest, burn to the root my desires. How shall I worship thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? How shall I worship thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? Just as the fire may burn a whole forest, burn to the root my desires. Just as the fire may burn a whole forest, burn to the root my desires. How shall I love thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? How shall I seek thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? How shall I serve thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? How shall I worship thee, Lord my God, with every breath I breathe? We'll take this next chant into meditation. Sri Yogananda, Guide to Inner Freedom. Shri Yogananda, Guide to Inner Freedom, steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. Shri Yogananda, Guide to Inner Freedom, steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. Shri Yogananda, Guide to Inner Freedom, steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. Shri Yogananda, Guide to Inner Freedom. into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. Shri Yogananda, guide to inner freedom, steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. Meditate for 15 minutes. Offer an affirmation for gratitude. Just reminding ourselves that behind every gift we get, we are very thankful to the giver, but also the divine giver behind all those gifts. Making that a practice rather than feel entitled or even indebted to someone who gives us a gift. It's a good way of blessing them back. So we'll repeat this affirmation 5 times. Please repeat after me. First, we'll do it loudly, then softly, then in a whisper, and then quietly in our minds for the last 2 times. I give thanks to the giver behind each gift and to the one giver behind all that I receive. My gratitude rises with devotion's incense to the throne of omnipresence. Softly. I give thanks to the giver behind each gift and to the one giver behind all that I receive. My gratitude rises with devotion's incense to the throne of omnipresence. Now, in a whisper, I give thanks to the giver behind each gift and to the one giver behind all that I receive. My gratitude rises with devotion's incense to the throne of omnipresence. Now, mentally, I give thanks to the giver behind each gift and to the one giver behind all that I receive. My gratitude rises with devotion's incense to the throne of omnipresence. I give thanks to the giver behind each gift and to the one giver behind all that I receive. My gratitude rises with devotion's incense to the throne of omnipresence. Let's close with a prayer. I thank thee, Lord, for all thy blessings, but most of all, I thank thee for thy love. Oh. Invite Pradnya to do the reading.
Let's now listen to these words from the book Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda. The topic for today is the law of karma, bondage or soul release. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. The epistle of St. Paul to the Galatians contains this oft-quoted statement. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramhansa tells a story from the life of the Banaras saint Trailanga Swami. The skeptic once determined to expose Trailanga as a charlatan. A large bucket of calcium lime mixture used in whitewashing walls was placed before the Swami. Master, the materialist said, in mock reverence, I have brought you some clabbered milk. Please drink it. Trailanga unhesitatingly drained to the last drop the container full of burning lime. In a few minutes, the evildoer fell to the ground in agony. Help, Swami, help, he cried. I am on fire. Forgive my wicked test. The great yogi broke his habitual silence. Scoffer, he said, you did not realize when you offered me poison that my life is one with your own. Except for my knowledge that God is present in my stomach as in every atom of creation, the lime would have killed me. Now that you know the divine meaning of boomerang, never again play tricks on anyone. The well perched sinner, healed by Trailanga's words, slunk feebly away. Yogananda goes on to say, the reversal of pain was not due to any violation of the master, but came about through unerring application of the law of justice, which upholds creation's farthest swinging orb. Men of God realization, like Trailanga, allow the divine law to operate instantaneously. They have banished forever all thwarting cross currents of ego. Not by reason alone, but by self realization, at the ins and outs of destiny fully understood. Their web, though tied forever to the post of ego motivation, is too intricate to be perceived as a single thread. Only great masters can see it with clarity. It is visible to them in all its workings, not from within the tangle, but from above in superconsciousness. As Sri Krishna said in the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he who beholds in action and action in inaction is wise among men. He is one with the Spirit. He has attained the true goal of action, perfect freedom. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
Thank you, Pradnya, that reading. So, yes, this is a topic that as devotees we often hold with some fear also. The divine boomerang. So, what gets done comes around. And so sometimes there is fear, but then our worldly attitudes and the ways of the world does play upon our minds. And there are times when we just want to get even with someone. How can you do this to me? I have to teach you a lesson. Unless I take revenge, you won't learn. This is what we tend to think. And Master very beautifully explains this through the story of Trailanga Swami. Trailanga Swami was a saint who lived in Benares for almost 300 years. And Master says he had 1 pound for each year. So he was 300 pounds in weight. He was big built. But he was a saint who had worked out all karma, and therefore he would lie on rocks in the heat of summers in Benares and not get scorched, or he would float in water, and people would be kind of looking at it in wonder. But he was trying to teach this lesson that this body is not something that you should be attached to, and it can take all of this when you have faith. And Trailanga Swami was a great friend of Lahari Mahashaya. And once he was very humble. He had his followers and he was going about in Banaras. And he saw Lahari Mahashaya coming. And Trailanga Swami touched Lahari Mahashaya's feet. And his disciples said, why are you touching this householder's feet? And Trailanga Swami said, Lahari Mahashaya is a divine kitten. And he's always in Divine Mother's lap. And so don't make these judgments on, who is evolved and who is not. And that was a beautiful way of explaining. And all of us all the time do have these tendencies to judge each other. If not, we're not in an age where we go and hit people, but we do imagine things in our mind as to how we can get back on some of the injustice that has happened to us. And Master explains it very beautifully, and he says, it is the ego which is causing all of this, that I am important and how can you do this to me? And the boomerang is a reality. And in the autobiography of a yogi, Master says this, that the dull mind discredits the divine destiny. And therefore, it forgets the divine love, the divine justice, the divine omniscience, where Master knows everything. He knows every thought that is going on, and the divine immortality. All of this we forget. And therefore, we need reminders. And which is why karma comes at us. But karma is not something to be scared of, particularly when we have techniques like Kriya, meditation, sadhana, energization. All of these are good tools to lift our minds from the sub and conscious states into the superconscious states, which is where it is possible for the mind to see things a little more clearly. But in this reading, Master also explained that the ins and outs of divine destiny are beyond what we as human beings can fathom. And it takes a master to view this and not get caught in that web of each devotee's karma, and therefore the causes and what happens. In fact, saints take on the karma of their disciples also. That's also a thing that happens often. And so the masters look at it from a state of super consciousness, not even, they are also. So a lot of times you hear this, past life reincarnation, and you get fascinated by it. You go for a reading or you go for hypnotherapy. Master warned against these practices. He said, practicing hypnotherapy, for instance, to break through some limitations, etc., could weaken your will. And what are you doing in a practice like that? You're subjugating your own self to somebody else and their will, and then they are taking charge. It should only be the divine that's taking charge. Now, there could be one off exceptions, but then you would take some spiritual counsel before you ever go for these readings or therapies. And this new age is full of therapies. So we have to be very careful around this. And there's the story of one monk who lived with Master around Swami's time. His name was Brother Ananda Pune. And Swami does mention him in conversations with Yogananda, and his original name was Henry. And he went through a lot of tests in his time with Master. Once he broke his left rib, and the next time he broke his right rib. And then he had a bad skin rash, and he suffered a lot through that. And Brother Anandamai says, Master would come around and give him a hard knock on his brain and say, Henry, what's happening? And he would get some relief in those moments. So this was an interesting avocado story that Brother Anandamoy narrated from his life. So he said that he came to Master, and he very soon realized that Master was an ascended master. But at the human level, you still have doubts. Yeah. So Master had taken Brother Anandamai along with a few other monks to the 29 Palms desert retreat. And Anandamai was working there. And one day he saw inside the house, Master was lashing in anger at one of the monks very loudly. And then he banged at the door and came out. And then he saw Anandmai outside, and he gave him a very loving smile immediately. And he said, "You're doing very well. Good job." And then Master went in again, and he continued in his raised voice to hammer at that monk who must have done something which required that kind of a reprimand. And then Anandmai reflects and he says, some of those monks were quite advanced. And so the things they were doing were very little things. But Master was a perfectionist and he wanted to even everything out. Anandmoy, in his frailty, was not so evolved. And so he started doubting Master. The doubt came in, and he said, okay, he has great spiritual powers, but does he really love us? You know, he's scolding him and then he's smiling at me. Does he even love me? He had this little doubt. And at that moment, Master came out and he gave Anandmoy an avocado. Anandmoy grew up in Switzerland. His father was a businessman and a very high ranking officer in the Swiss army. And he was brought up with a lot of discipline. And so, what was on the table was eaten without any fuss. He saw avocados when he came to America. And this was one thing Anandmoy could not eat. He had great hatred for the avocado. And Master gave him the avocado. So he took the avocado, plastic smile, and he went and he felt even more angry with Master. You know, I don't like avocado. You're giving me avocado. I'm going to have a showdown with you tomorrow. Brother Anandamay thought. And so in the morning, he got ready. His emotions were really agitated. And he went to that little place just outside where Master was staying, the adjacent building, and he had to do some roof work, which was assigned to him that day. So he went on the roof and he started hammering away on the roof with great determination that I will show my anger today. I need to know whether he loves me. And so he was hammering quite loud, and Master came out and he called him Henry. And Brother Anandamay pretended not to hear and he started hammering even louder. He said by then he was not hammering any nail, he was just hammering the roof. And again, Master came closer and he said, Brother Henry. And he said, I am not paying attention to him today. He doesn't love me. So he continued to hammer even more. And then Master came right down to where he was and said, Henry. And just looked down and was nodding at him. He said, come down. In that moment, he kept the hammer down and he started to walk down. He could see everything clearly. He felt deep love from Master just in that moment. And he came, and Master was standing with both his arms behind him. And he took his right hand and he gave him half an avocado. By then, Brother Anandamay was, whatever, I feel so much love. He had a lump in his throat. And then Master slowly took his other arm and he gave him some dates and pistachios. And he said, eat it together. You will like it. And by then he was overwhelmed and Master made him sit down and he said, eat it. And Master went for a walk. Brother Anandamay completely broke down. He felt so much love that it was something that he had never experienced, and there was no need to ask any questions. It was very clear to him that Master knows everything. And he came back and he said, come now, let's go for a walk. And he held Brother Anandamay's hand and explained to him how unconditional the Guru's love was and how much he cared about each of his disciples and how they need to keep themselves uplifted so that they can think the right thoughts and do the right things. So these masters are omniscient and Master is watching over each of his disciples. That is what discipleship is all about. That is what the path of Kriya is all about. And there is a divine promise and a divine destiny for each one of us. So that was a little story. Now, question is, do you like your avocados when they come to you? How do we make the right combinations of pistachio and dates when we can make some of those avocados more palatable, right? We love the nice gifts that we get from the divine, but we often hate it when we get some of this karma boomeranging back to us, like it happened to that devotee who pretended clabbered milk and gave Trailanga Swami lime. But it was instant karma. And Trailanga Swami explains it beautifully. He says, I am in you and you are in me. And in my body cells, there is the divine. And so it all works out that way. And never assume that we can cheat. It's the dullness of our mind, it's our ego that makes us believe that, we can get away with it. Swami often said, karma is smarter than the police. When you do something, you think nobody is watching. There's someone watching. Yeah. And then the line from the Gita was action in inaction and inaction in action. But what do we humanly think? We think we are the doers. And therefore, we put our ego there. And sometimes it is quite destructive in how we think that it is us who are doing this thing. And there is a greater divine play. And the role of a devotee is to be an instrument. And many times we are imperfect, but God only sees the heart as to what was the intention and how were you doing it. And there's always a divine protection around us. So in the conversations with Yogananda, Swami shares one story that Master often told. And this was about Tulsidas. So Tulsidas was serving as a priest in a temple. And that temple had many golden objects, which were very, very precious and ancient. So in his meditations, he would go deep, but Tulsidas would be a little bit worried about what if I went deep and something got stolen? And so it kind of held him back in those moments of ecstasy. One day, as he was going out, a very finely dressed man comes up to him and says, I want to come to your temple, but there is this man at the gate who's stopping me. And Tulsidas knew there was no guard in that temple. It was just him. And so he said, can you describe this man to me? And he said, he is very picturesque, looks very ancient, and he has a bow in his hand. And Tulsidas in that moment jumped with joy because he knew Ram himself was guarding the temple when he was experiencing this doubt about would anyone steal it. He was also very compassionate. And so he said, I'll take care of this. You can come to the temple tomorrow. And so the next day, the man came to the temple and nobody stopped him. And Tulsidas was outside. The man grabbed all the idols and all the gold, which were made of gold, and he took to his foot super fast, just as that moment when Tulsidas was walking back into the temple. And he, of course, knew what had happened. He came in, and there was one gold object that was left behind. Tulsi picked that up and ran after the thief and caught up with him and said, brother, you left this behind. And the thief instantaneously understood the divine play and how he had, in his greed, thought that he could get away and no one would see. So he had even dropped Ram's guard. But here he was. He gave in that moment everything back to Tulsidas, and they walked back to the temple. He blessed him. So again, here is Tulsidas who's serving so beautifully. And there was no ego, but he was very responsible. Even in his meditations, he had that little lurking thought that was kind of bothering him. And his guru was taking care of everything. And he made sure nothing went wrong. And it was only with Tulsi's permission that he dropped the guard and all of this happened. And in that moment, again, Tulsidas must have worked out some of his karma. It is complete non-attachment. to anything and understanding the divine flow. So these things are very subtle. And, as we are on the path and we practice, it's not, physical run ins that we have, but many a times these are afflictions which are more mental in nature, emotional in nature, and of course, spiritual in nature. So we have to find ways of how can we work this dull mind of ours, which thinks we can get away with this little activity, or the ego that is constantly misleading us on many fronts. And for that, I thought, why come up with a new list? Recently, we had the spiritual renewal week, which happened in Puri, and Jyotish ji had given a very interesting exercise at the end of it. One of the things he gave away was a small journal, and he said, you should write your thoughts there. And he said, the real goal of every devotee is to be a saint. Now we think, oh my God, that's not happening this time. We called it the Future Saints Club. And he said, enroll in the Future Saints Club. So we all have divine potential. And so we need to look at ways in which we can enroll ourselves in that Future Saints Club. And he said, don't take anything which is very difficult for you. Take something very simple. Try to work with one quality at a time. And it is much easier when you work with a positive quality. So instead of, thinking about something which is very difficult for you, I should be more disciplined, etc. Maybe say, I want to have more devotion, which is a positive quality and easier to work with. And then he said, you can work on this in very easy steps: prayer, visualizations, and affirmations. And these are things you can do by yourself. And he said, to aid your practice, read or listen to talks. And so Conversations with Yogananda was one of the books that he recommended that you could read. And it's beautiful to directly hear many stories from Master's time as narrated by Swami from his time with him. And you could listen to talks like Treasure Talks, where Swami is touching on many of these things. It's all very subtle. And he said you have to work more with as you go deeper into your practices, work with your moods, work with your attitudes, work with your emotions, and try to do something one step at a time, a small step, but it'll take you very far. And when you think you've kind of mastered it, that's when the spiral staircase comes into play. And Divine Mother comes one more time to test. Have you really mastered it? And then in that moment, if you're able to, then you go on to the next quality, but you don't have to wait for the test. It'll come. The divine mathematics is very, very clear. And so, as devotees, we should not see karma as bondage, I would say. It is actually an opportunity for us to work on ourselves and evolve spiritually so that we can all be saints in the future and join that club. So the time of the year ending is a great time to do such work. So, you don't need to have a very fancy journal, just have a little notebook. What I have been doing for the last 1 month is I took the journal and I kept Conversations with Yogananda right there next to it. So after my meditation, it's kind of staring at me. There's no escape. So you sit down, you read, you think about your quality. I picked non-injury. And I loved the affirmation, which is talking about sending rains of blessings to hearts that need to be nurtured with love. And so that brings in more understanding and helps us deal much better with some of the more difficult people in our life. We all have abundance of that. And so it's about remembering and working in little ways that makes us take one step at a time. And that's how all the saints worked. And I'll close with this little saying from Master where he said, a saint is a sinner who never gave up. So it's about not giving up. Yeah. Oh. Closer than Aarti.
Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Rama Shri Radhe Govinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Rama Shri Radhe Govinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Rama Shri Radhe Govinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Rama Shri Radhe Govinda Hare Krishna Hare Rama Shri Radhe Govinda.
We'll close with a healing prayer. So I invite you to visualize anyone you know who's in need of healing, seeing them surrounded in divine light. Divine Mother, Thou art omnipresent. Thou art in all these Thy children. Manifest Thy healing presence in their bodies, in their minds, and in their souls. Let's rub our palms together and chant Om 3 times, sending out waves of blessings. Om. 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 Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Please be seated, and I invite Gaurav to make the announcements.
Thank you, Lataji, for amazing. I guess I just mesmerized this whole evening today. Thank you so much. Okay, for the announcement, we have 21st December. We have a 8 hours long meditation, and this is actually a Christmas meditation that happens every year. So time will we will provide later on. On 25th November, we have a Christmas. Sorry, 25th December. Because here November is written, so sorry, my mistake. 25th December is a Christmas day, and we celebrate with Swamiji's Christmas songs, potluck lunch, and there should be a divine mother gift exchange. So if you want to participate this year, please have a name written to Pragnya, and then we can get together with that one. On 31st December, the last day of this year, we have a New Year Eve meditation with chanting and meditation. So we'll provide the timing, what will be the timing, and thank you very much for coming up. And now we have a prasad. Thank you so much. Bye.